Hello, Enthusiastic Steve here. A few of you have messaged me and asked me about how I set up the car to go portable. Well, I intend to do an in-depth video on this, the part one of the part two, which is already out sometime in the near future. But in answer to those questions, I will just show you around the car and show you some of the things that you need to consider, things that you need to take into account to be able to effectively transmit RF energy, especially HF, from your vehicle. So we'll have a little look around the car. We'll look in the boot, look at the battery situation, and I'll give you a few hints and tips on what you need or you may have to take into consideration. The thing with modding cars is there's not a lot of space. In the days of the original CB days in the late 70s and early 80s, cars had shelves and big open areas and no airbags, and nobody really minded about drilling holes in your dashboard and attaching microphone clips or radios, etc., or quick release mounts. A little bit different today. Cars are a little bit more refined. Nobody really wants to cut a hole through their lovely dashboard. So what options do you have? Well, yeah, again, some cars you can, as in this one, I've got a small 2-meter 77s radio, a little QYT. And I've managed to fit it down the side of the gearbox column, just in front of the seat. Doesn't get in the way of my legs, and it's nicely tucked out away, and it's pretty secure and safe. I was then posed the problem of how I'm going to put an HF and 11-meter radio in the car to use up on the hilltops. Well, comes a little bit more difficult. In this car, this is an old Alfa GT. It's a few years old now, 16 years old, but she's in pretty good condition. But all the dashboard is all curved, apart from this area here. It's still got a slight curve to it. But you can, with a little bit of rubber matting, make yourself a non-slip area and actually put the actual radios onto there. Now, the HF radio I use is an Elinco DX8. Now, that's fortunately got a detachable head unit. And I was trying to work out how I'm going to put a detachable head unit in the vehicle. Now, I will show you this in the more in-depth video a later date. But what I actually did was I just went down to the pound store, bought myself the equivalent of some really cheap Meccano, and I made a little bracket. And I haven't actually got it here in front of me to show you, but the bracket fits into the slot of the CD player and then attaches to the actual front of the radio, which sits there lovely. And as a bonus, the cup holder in the tray acts as a tray. So the radio head unit sits there and locked into place with the actual slot on the actual CD player. It's not going to go anywhere. Now, the detachable head unit on the Elinco DX8 uses a Cat5 interface to connect it up, and this is the Cat5 cable I use. This runs into the boot where the actual main body of the radio is kept in a padded suitcase, and also a little antenna tuner sits neatly next to it, next to the batteries. Now, we've got to be careful with this. I was getting RF feedback, quite considerable RF feedback to start with. So this cable here, I paid a little bit more extra money for it, but this is a shielded Cat5 cable, and this runs down the side of the column, nicely looped up, tucks away under the seat until I need it, and you can just unloop it and connect it to the back of the Elinco headset, and it runs back under the carpets, through under the back seats and into the boot, making sure I've got plenty of coils in it on the way, and also a couple of RF chokes, little magnets that sit on the outside, just as added precaution. But it's cured the RF problem altogether. As regards antenna connections, well, again, antennas, you just have to, what I do is use a good solid cable, low loss, and I just coil it up and leave it under the seat when it's not in use. So it works. It works really well. I don't have, ideally, an ICOM 7100 or similar, small radio, one radio, all bands, but unfortunately I don't have that luxury, so I'm currently using an Elinco for HF and 11 meters. Also, I've got the say the 2 and 70 down there by the side of the gearbox tunnel, and I've got an Ascom for me 4 meters again, which sits neatly on top of there, and the loudspeaker connects up underneath the seat unit. So all in all, it works for me. There's quite a few little cables running back and forward. From a power perspective, what I've done is I've made them as universal as possible, and I've put these connections. These were Maplins. Unfortunately, Maplins are no longer, and I can't get these. These are American, but they work for me. They're compact, and you just mark them up, male and female. And these ones, actually, this one goes to the 2m77's radio, and then I've got the female equivalent here. It's got a fuse in line further back, and this all goes back to the batteries in the boot. So I can bring any radio in the car, quick plug and play, plug the antenna in, and we are ready to go. Now, say these cables, don't need too much because I'm only running 10 watts, so I'm only running a couple of amps, 2-3 amps max. These cables are plenty thick enough. If you were using higher power amplifiers, maybe not recommended as such mobile, but some of you may, always consider, for allowing the amperage to go through the cable, you need a larger, thicker wire, and I will come to that in a minute, the importance when we get to the batteries. So as we come around to the back of the car, and as at the moment I've got a Ampro on the mount, which I mounted the other day, the newly refurbished old Comet, Japan Comet made mount. The benefit with these over the a mag mount is, of course, it actually attaches directly to the metal of the car. The actual grub screws underneath actually penetrate the paint and actually make metal to metal contact, so you get a good earth on them. Mag mounts, fantastic. But you need to be careful that you're getting the capacitance between the actual magnet and the body of the car. The other thing with these is you've got to be careful with your car. You do not have, and I mean you do not have, one of those little earthing straps that hang on the back underneath, touching the ground. Your car needs to be insulated. The earthing only works and the capacitance only works because the bodywork of the car is totally isolated from the ground around it. By all means, park in a puddle with your tyres or over damp soil. It all helps. Park by the seafront. The water, absolutely tremendous. It can really boost your RF signal. But it is important that you use a good magnet with a good clean up base underneath. Take them off regularly, clean them, make sure the surfaces are clean. I use this one for 10 and 11 meters. Anything above that, 40, 20, other bands in the HF, the triple mount. If you use that on 20, 40 meters, you get RF feedback that you will not stop it, or very unlikely to stop it. Use one of these, you'll dissipate all that energy, and through the bodywork of the car, it works fantastic. I've had 4,500 miles on 10 watts using a quarter wave whip on 18 megs, so it works. And that's parked down by the seafront as well. You cannot underestimate the benefits of parking by the water edge. So there we go. We've got the mount on here, and we're taking you around to show you the untidy boot. And everything is out at the moment, but I've got a space at the back of the car, and it's all in the netted off area, again for protection. You don't want heavy items flying around. But this is so excuse the mess at the moment. But what I'm using is a battery, and I've got a battery nicely located in a box. I would put both batteries in a box for security, but I haven't got a second one at the moment. Batteries are nothing special. They are 30 amp batteries, and what I've done, I've joined them up in together, and so I've got a total of 60 amps of power. Now, 30 amp hour battery, for those who are not too au fait with batteries. 30 amp hour means basically if you draw 1 amp of energy at 12 volts, that's 12 watts. So if I had an item that burnt 12 watts of energy, I can get 30 hours out of it. So, you know, if you're using, these are good for 5 or 10 hours use, constant. You know, transmit, listen. You'll get a good, if you was out all day or maybe a month of, you know, casual transmitting, easily get that 10 watts or so, yeah, or 10 watts, or if I was using the Charlie Tango 555, might be a little bit more than 10 watts, who knows. But yeah, these will last a long time. Join them up with decent cables, These are the thicker cables here, which are taking the power to the batteries with fuses, 30 amp fuses in each one, positive and negative. You may be asking me why I've got a toilet roll in here. Well, I've just used the toilet roll as a makeshift coil, RF choke. Just stops any of the RF energy coming down the outside braid. That will eliminate that. It will choke it off there, stop you causing out any RF again. And that's it. So nothing spectacular. Leisure batteries are the best ones to get. If you can afford them, go out and buy yourself some leisure batteries. It's all about the way the energy comes out of the battery. Some batteries have got lots of capacity, but especially if you're running high power, they don't like a high power drain for a long period of time. So leisure batteries kind of get around that. They will allow you more energy to be drawn from the battery over a period of time compared to a standard car battery. Okay, now these are just standard batteries, but I'm not drawing that much current, so it's not too much of a problem. So, but I've linked the two together. So if I was to draw 10 amps, I'm only drawing 5 amps from each battery at any one time. So nice, it works nicely. I'll top them up. Battery charger, probably about once every couple of months, but they don't really use a lot of energy. And just make sure all the connections are taped over, so there's no bare metal for any possibility of anything shorting, because I carry all the antennas in the boot. I've got a cardboard tube with some of the antennas in, some of the ones that don't fit in there like that. It is a right mess at the moment, but again the case I've got fits in there nicely. It all squares off, it's all secure, can't move around, and it's safe. So here we go with a radio in the car. This is the HF Exuyi, however you pronounce it. It's a G90. But it's there you go. It's on a rubber mat. It's solid. It's secure. You've got the power cable going around the back with a nice RF choke on it, the magnetic choke, stopping any RF coming back down the cable. The antenna cable itself is routed around the back, out the way, not too sharp bends, because you don't want to put a too sharp a bend in it, otherwise that will affect your affect the signal slightly. The only thing you need to watch out for is, as the summer arrives or you're operating in sunshine, you don't want the back of the radio getting too hot with the sun. You can fry an egg on it, so that's going to affect the internal components of the actual radio. So you've seen these sunshades you can buy. You can probably, I've got one in the back somewhere, such as this one. It's like a silvery foil. I think Halford's and other car accessory shops sell them, but ideal, absolutely perfect. You can put that up in your windscreen. It can keep the heat of the car out of the car when you're operating, and it keeps all the heat off of the actual radio itself. Now, I have experimented in the past by making a like an insulated silver cover which fits loosely over the top with air holes, but you'll find that the sun still gets on the silver, and some of the RF in the infrared passes through, and it still heats the radio up. I had it in a van before, not this radio, a similar one, and that was getting extremely hot even when it was covered over. So just be aware, don't overheat your radio just by purely the sunshine on it. Try and protect it where you can. But it works. And all you need to do is say set up somewhere to put the microphone. I have got a microphone clip around the corner there, but say unfortunately the microphones are all different. So if you put a little loop on these microphones, make things as standard as possible. If you're using more than one microphone, try and make things all standard. So it's just about a plug and play, and you haven't got all the hassle of having to take half hour to set your vehicle up to go out and have a little play. It can ruin it. You can take the edge off the actual excitement and the fun. But there you go. This is the little setup I've got in the car. I will do a more in-depth one in the future, explaining all the ins and outs, and go into a little bit more detail, a little bit more of the engineering of how things work. It looks a little bit ad hoc, but it works for me. All the very best. This has been Enthusiastic Steve.